Namah Shivaya. This Friday we'd like to talk a little bit about Manasya Yoga. The term itself, this Friday is getting from Mahendra Baba's both blessings and precepts, in which he had written that Maha Avatar Babaji, the great Siddha, through his manifestation of Harakan Baba and the Harakan Leelas, was giving one teaching of Manasya Yoga, and then through Lahiri Mahasaya that he had given the Kriya Yoga, which together they represent like one could become a Maha Siddha like Babaji through these perfections. Through the Kriya Yoga, Mahendra Baba had stated that one could learn to regenerate the cells of the body, to stop the degeneration of the cells of the body that generally takes place around average of 24 or 25 years of age. It starts to be more degeneration than regeneration, supposedly, in anatomy. Actually, the cells are changing over all the time, and the Siddhas leave this, that it could be consistently kept on going, a healthy, youthful body. So Kriya Yoga, properly mastered, could bring about physical, immortal body almost for hundreds of years or thousands of years. And then in Manasya Yoga was the mastery of the mind. And so this party I'd like to talk about the Manasya Yoga then. This party has been going to Harakan and doing a sadhana with Harakan Babaji as an image of Babaji for about 8 years in this body. Started with mantra earlier, but then we're guided to an image of Babaji and stories of Harakan, and believing that was a manifestation of Babaji, then began practicing sadhana. So many hundreds of thousands of repetitions of the Om Namah Shivaya mantra, because Babaji had instructed this practice, repetition of the Om Namah Shivaya mantra, as being the fastest, easiest, surest, quickest way to self-God realization in this age, Kali Yuga, this changing time. Specifically is why this mind believes he gave Om Namah Shivaya mantra. Among other reasons, it's also because Om Namah Shivaya for the Siddha yogis is the Maha mantra, containing all energies, the 5 elements, and also all many different levels to the meaning of this Maha mantra, Om Namah Shivaya. So through practicing sadhana with Babaji, this body started to receive guidance on Manasya Yoga. It came in many different forms. It's not limited to just like an esoteric idea of hearing a voice or like seeing an image of Babaji and him speaking to the body. Information came on all levels of consciousness as energy and pure information, and through books and study of the scriptures, all sorts of things have combined together to this understanding of Manasya Yoga that this mind currently has, the level of understanding that we have, which is not necessarily a complete perfection of Manasya Yoga. Manasya Yoga is a very broad field, and in fact yoga in divisions doesn't really exist. Yoga is a unity. So even taking Kriya Yoga, taking Manasya Yoga, whatever form of yoga, if it's practiced all the way to the form of yoga, then there's yoga, and everything is unified in that infinite awareness of all-pervasive supreme consciousness and infinite energy, supreme bliss. So the divisions of yoga are a certain kind of maya, but then in Manasya Yoga, then the techniques of sadhana that are being used, the focus is in the mental body and in bringing the mind then to dissolve into its inherent perfection, because the mind is sourced in consciousness, and consciousness is Shiva. Shiva to the Siddhas means the supreme consciousness, all pervasive field of consciousness, all awareness is sourced in that. There's nothing that is separate from that. Anywhere there is consciousness, that consciousness comes from that infinite field of consciousness itself. So, Manasya Yoga then is through the techniques of the mind, then we bring ourselves to rest into that supreme awareness, into the supreme form of enlightenment. Now, this is like Ramana Maharishi's methods or his teachings, where he's like, why take some roundabout method of cultivating certain qualities that are supposed to lead one to enlightenment or to perfection or to that realization. It's like, why not just abide as that, abide as the self? And this is kind of what Manasya Yoga is, though there are various levels to approaching it, where it would be easier with certain containers sometimes. But that is the essence of Manasya Yoga. It's just to bring consciousness back to itself. The source of consciousness is that supreme consciousness, Shiva. Or it doesn't have to be called by that name. It's beyond names and all names, names and namelessness. So it's just bringing consciousness back to itself, into inherent perfection. It's concentrating on the ideal itself, on the supreme form of enlightenment, on supreme consciousness, all-pervasive consciousness. And then there's renunciation then. What this mind understands and believes renunciation to be is actually an inner teaching. It doesn't necessarily apply to the outside. You can take vows of living, a certain lifestyle in a monastery and these certain vows if you believe that will be conducive to the experience of renunciation, but how it's misunderstood is that is renunciation. In fact, renunciation can only occur within, when the mind simply lets go of all the relativities, and then it starts to settle back into its own self, into its own awareness, into that supreme all-pervasive field of consciousness, which is Shiva, which is the self. So, then the practice is like renunciation, or letting go of the modifications of the mind. So we've been mentioning Shiva. The Siddhas talk about their Shiva, and we'll just use these names or these terms just for describing this information for now, our philosophy that is the basis of why and how we do this Manasya Yoga. And so there's Shiva, which is the pure, all-pervasive consciousness. It's the principle of consciousness, the archetype of consciousness. And the Siddhas knew that it was all-pervasive and boundless, that there was no place that it was separated and like one consciousness began here and another consciousness began over there. No, according to the Siddhas and yoga, that's not how consciousness works. It's everywhere, and everything that is experienced within consciousness, that's all together, and that's Shakti. Everything that is experienced by consciousness, all the possibilities of the worlds then, that can be created, that can be experienced, that can be inhabited, the different things that can be done there, the driving forces, the objects. Shakti is called Maya. She's called Swarupini, which means all form. Maya is like mother. She's actually the mother. Everything that's occurring here is still within her womb. It's not separate from her. So in this way, we make it so that all these things, these relativities, the experience of the human world, all the possibilities, dimensions of what's being experienced by consciousness, these are not our enemies at all. This is actually our mother, our friend. This is Shakti, and it's an infinite, limitless, boundless field of resources, of power, of information, of experiences that can be had. This is definitely our friend, and this way this mind doesn't agree with the common translation or understanding of Maya as being illusion. Because this is God's power. This is the self's own power within awareness. They're intricately married, Shiva and Shakti. They're always together like this. In the scriptures it says even that the difference between the two is so subtle that it would be impossible even to tell the difference with the rational mind. So, this is all important because these are techniques for making, or information or philosophy for making this into a supportive network and a supportive field rather than it being something of antagonism. It's mother energy. And Dattatreya says in the Tripura Rahasya that yeah, he says that it's easy when we, use the terms Maya, Shakti, Mother, to approach these like this, So, in Manasya Yoga, then, to make it more into a container of how we would go about this, how do we bring our own awareness, or bring awareness back to itself, to that self-realization state, to that all-pervasive, illumined awareness. How do we go about this then? To make more of a structure, technique for this, or an example, because there are many ways then. There's one that this mind is used and frequently uses where you can have the image of the master in the heart. The guru represents the self-realized. The guru is not even necessarily any particular person, but it's a force, an energy which is self-realization. It is enlightenment itself. So, when one picks an image of a person or a guru, then that represents that they're enlightened or they have been self-realized. And so they are a perfect image of that and a representation of that in a physical earthly form, or some form. So then the guru in the heart, and according to the instructions of the Guru Gita, the guru is sitting on a lotus and dressed in white and offering white flowers. So for the practice and the application, this mind will use like this, and with our teacher Babaji, with the manifestation of Babaji, dressed in white in the heart, and he's representing that highest supreme state of enlightenment for us, that self-realized state. And then everything else is being turned into white flowers and offered to Babaji in the heart. So anything that's arising that would be apparently distraction, or are the relativities, the different things that are occurring in the mind at the time, they're all turning into flowers. That's the visualization or the imagination. They're like, okay, these are all turning into flowers, and they're being offered to Babaji in the heart. And it's a great mass, a great number of flowers in our own meditation, because we would like, at least for a time, to let go of everything so we can get a clear, like consciousness can be clear to just see for a moment, like what's really occurring in reality, what is really here on a broader scale, rather than just looking in little pockets of thought and little angles of views, which are little small. It's a small part of the mind, a certain radio station or frequency or tune of the mind that we can engage in, but it's a small part. So